Hey, good morning, everybody. How's it going? Happy Friday. What's up? How are we this morning? Yeah, so it's Friday. Wow, can you believe we're already through the first week in March? It's completely crazy, isn't it? Um, and I feel like we do this like every single year. It's like as the weeks go on, the points do get higher, but also it just feels like the time just speeds up faster and faster. It's just crazy. So anyway, good morning, happy Friday. Thank you guys for just kind of tuning in and jumping in with me today. I want to, since the last couple days or so, we've been kind of talking about like spiritual warfare and battle, and putting on the armor of God, standing against the enemy, controlling our thoughts, and taking those things captive. Captive? That's a new word. Captive. And those kind of things. Like I wanted to kind of stay in that kind of same stream for just kind of finished out the week. And I thought, what better way to do it than to kind of sum up with the battle of David and Goliath, because that is just as much a reflection of the spiritual battles that we engage in, but also what God has done for us. So yeah, good morning. Hey, good morning, guys. Sorry, I just saw the messages coming. Good morning, Kristen. Good morning, Mama. I get to see my mom soon. She's coming in today. So yay, Mom. Miss Barb, if you're watching, good morning. It's good to have you with us today. Story of David and Goliath is in 1 Samuel chapter 17. Now, the entire book, the entire chapter is really long and really huge, and I'm not going to go through all of it. So if you're not familiar with that story, again, 1 Samuel 17 has like the full kind of range of it, but I'm only going to look at verses 45 to 47 for our reading this morning. And here's what it says. David replied to the Philistine, that was Goliath, you come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. And then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with the sword and spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us. Like, there's so much in this chapter. Good morning, Marion, that we could look at, that we could dig into, that we could just kind of like peel out. But I just kind of want to focus on a couple pieces that like that conversation between David and Goliath is like, it's kind of like the summary, kind of like the crux of what he's saying, right? And he's just kind of basically telling him like, dude, look, you're come out here with all these weapons. Remember, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. We don't wage war the way the world does, the way humans do. God gives us weapons that are mighty in him. And so David's talking to Goliath and he's saying like, you're coming at me with all these weapons, with all these man-made things and objects. But honestly, dude, I'm coming at you in the name of the Lord. And it doesn't give us permission to just come at anything that we want in the name of the Lord, thinking that we're right and everybody else is wrong. Because remember, this isn't something that we're wrestling against flesh and blood with. But when we're opposing our enemy, when we're opposing the spiritual forces, we don't come against them with human man-made weapons. We come against them in the name of the Lord, right? If we're trying to do it in our own strength, it's not going to work. And so what's cool about this kind of whole, like when you look at the whole story, David wasn't coming looking for a fight. He wasn't. Like David didn't show up on the battlefield because he was just looking for a fight and he was going after something. Like, and I think a lot of us, sometimes if we're honest, like we wake up in the morning like we're looking for a fight. I have moments sometimes where I'm looking for a fight, not like a physical fight, but like I'm looking for an argument. I'm riled up and I'm looking for someone to come at me, bro, which is kind of like what David was saying, sort of. But like, sometimes we have the tendency to like get riled up into those things and we want to get pulled into looking for a fight, looking for an argument. We want to find something to win, find someone to beat, find someone to prove that they're wrong and that we're right. That's not what David was doing. David wasn't looking for a fight. But when he got to the front lines, his dad just sent him to take bread and meat to his brothers and to the officers because he knew battle was going on. So David was just serving his father. And when he got to the front lines, he saw what was going on, and he saw Goliath coming out there and throwing his taunts and basically saying, like, I dare you guys to come pick one person to come fight me. And if we lose, and if you win, like, we'll submit to you. If we win, you submit to us, kind of thing. So David didn't go looking for a fight, but when he got there and he saw what was going on, like, what he saw was a cause worth fighting for. That's the difference. He didn't just see that there was a fight and he wanted to get involved in it. He saw that there was a cause worth fighting for because there was a person, there was a really big bully, not only picking on the people of Israel, but he was defying the name of his God, of David's God, of Israel's God. Like, he was taunting who God was. And what David also saw in those moments was he saw a lack of leadership, because King Saul was sitting under a tree just like hoping that it was going to take care of itself. He saw a lack of leadership, and he saw a lack of willingness for people to get involved. And those two things sometimes can make all the difference. When there's a lack of leadership and when there's a lack of willingness for people to get involved, someone's got to step in and fill in that vacuum, to fill in that space. But what also I think is interesting is David didn't over spiritualize this, right? Like, David didn't hear what was going on and then go, oh, guys, we should probably have a really big prayer meeting right now and spend the next 27 hours praying to figure out what we want to do. Good morning, Chandra. Just saw you. He didn't do that. He didn't over spiritualize and say, guys, if we just pray, Goliath will go home and all the Philistines will leave us alone. Like, no, he didn't do that. Honestly, I don't even see, in the text, David doesn't even stop to go, let me pray about this for a moment. God, is this something that you want me to be a part of? Is this something that you want to do? If so, open the doors. Let the king come find me. Like, he didn't do any of that. And please hear my heart. I'm not saying it's wrong to pray about things. I'm not saying we shouldn't take the time to touch base with God and to see what he wants. But I also think that there was an element with David where he had already been talking to God. Like, he'd been hanging out in the field with the sheep, just talking to God all day long. Like, he was in regular communion with him or with the Father already, so that when he came to the situation, it wasn't something he had to pray about. And there's the difference. When we spend time regularly praying and connecting and communing with God, we don't have to take as much time to step back and pray about certain situations as they come, because we've already been in communion with him. But when we face something and we feel like we've got to go into prayer for the next 3 weeks about it, sometimes that can mean that we're not already spending time with God because we don't have clarity in what we need to do. Now, again, please hear my heart. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. I'm not saying that just because you take time to pray about something, that means you're not connected to God. That's not what I'm saying. There are some big decisions that sometimes, man, you got to take time to pray about it. But in this situation, there was a need that had to be addressed right there. David didn't have time to go pray about it. He took action on based on knowing that something needed to be done, and he knew he was able to do something about it. So guys, there are times when it comes to our spiritual prayer life and the spiritual war that has to be waged, that we don't need to just sit back and take more time to pray. Sometimes we just got to act. Sometimes we just got to step out, step in, and do what we know God's gifted us with, what we're capable of. And if we can meet a need in a situation, then it's our job and it's our calling to meet the need in the situation. And when it came to David, he says in the story that when he went to the king, he's like, dude, I'll take this joker. I'll take this guy. And the king was like, you can't. You're only a boy. He's a trained warrior. And David says, all right, well, here's what you need to know. I'm a shepherd, and I take care of sheep. And when a lion or a bear comes at me or comes at the sheep in the field, I've killed them both with my bare hands. This Philistine who's defying the armies of God, he's no different. If God delivered me from the hand of the bear and the lion, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And he was basically like, God, and here's the thing, here's the principle from this, right? David's private victories prepared him for bigger battles. The victories and the battles that David won in private, in obscurity, back in some hidden little field, those victories helped prepare him for bigger battles. And so what he learned in obscurity set him up to win in public. And guys, there are so many times when we're only looking for the spotlight. We're only looking for the platform. We're only looking for the big moment and the big stage to prove how great we are. Guys, that's not what God's trying to do. God wants us to know that his faithfulness and our faithfulness to him in private, behind closed doors when nobody sees it, our faithfulness and commitment to honor him and to live our lives for him and to win the small private victories in the dark that nobody knows about, those little victories set us up to eventually win in public. I heard, and it's not that we're trying to win in public so everybody can see it. When the opportunity arises that has a more of a public view, you have greater confidence to step into it because you've won smaller victories along the way that nobody knew about, right? Like I heard this quote that said like, champions aren't made in the ring. They're not made on the field. Champions are made in practice. And they are. Like real champions are made in practice and you don't see it. They just get recognized on the field. They just get recognized on the court. They get recognized in the ring because that's the public spotlight. But it's the private victories. It's the small disciplines. It's the daily habits that set us up for real success, to honestly, to meet a greater need. And that's why we can't despise small beginnings and we can't undervalue those small beginnings because they're so important. God uses every bit of it. And then what we see about David is when David steps out on that field, he steps out in confidence, not in himself, not in what he can do. He's not even trying to make himself famous. He's not trying to do it for him or to make himself look good. And if you read the story, David's own brother basically accused him of that. David's own brother said, listen, I know why you're here. I know why you left those sheep somewhere because you were just bloodthirsty and you just wanted to see the battle and you wanted to try to get involved. You're just trying to make this all about you. And I'm calling you out on it, is what his older brother was trying to do. But that was not David's heart. And if we're honest, if we kind of look at that situation, guys, there will always be people and there will always be voices that misunderstand your motives and try to make you think it's all about you and you're doing something wrong. But you know what I've learned? Those voices come from a place of massive insecurity and a lack of motion on their part. Most of the time, the voices of critics, the voice of criticism always comes from a place of insecurity, and it comes from recognizing that there's a lack of motion on my part, and if I make you look bad for it, I can make myself feel better. Like that's what's happening. That's what David is doing. And so it's a reflection of his brother's insecurities and inability and lack of confidence, not David's insecurities and lack of confidence and lack of ability and that's not what happened here. We've got to know that there was always going to be somebody criticizing. Anytime you try to step out and take on something that is a need that needs to be met, that's bigger than you, but still needs to be addressed, anytime you try to step out into that space, there will always be somebody trying to push you back, hold you down, and keep you from standing in that space. Don't let those voices control you. Keep going anyway. And here's the just the gist of kind of what I really hope we kind of get across today. There will always be giants in our lives. There will always be giants in life that are going to come against us. They're gonna feel very overwhelming. They're gonna feel like we can't win. They're gonna feel like there's no way. Like we don't even know what to do. Like the entire army of Israel was frozen in fear because Goliath was so big, and all they saw was, man, we ain't never gonna beat him. He's too big. No one's going to be able to do it. But they were looking at it from a worldly, humanly standpoint. But remember, we don't wage war the way the world does. We have weapons that are mighty in God for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments, and every high thing. Like all of those things. Like we stand in the armor of God. So yeah, there's always going to be giants, but your victory and our victory that we face is not in ourselves. It's in Jesus. It's in God. And so here's the other side of that, because David is a picture of Jesus. David is a picture of Jesus. He already took down the giants. Jesus already won the victory over the greatest giants that we could ever have to face or come against. Jesus already won the victory over death, over the grave, over our sin, right? Like he already conquered all of that stuff. And so if David is a reflection of what Jesus has already accomplished for us, well, then we can actually walk in greater confidence knowing that Jesus has already won. He's already taken down the giant. I love that what in this situation, like Goliath, David just went at him with a slingshot and a couple stones. Goliath was the one carrying the sword and the spear. And when all David had to do was knock Goliath out. Once David knocked Goliath out, he went over and took Goliath's sword and cut off the giant's head. Isn't it cool that the very thing that the enemy tries to come against you with, you get to, like, in God's strength, and when God gives you the victory, you get to turn it around and use that same thing to chop his head off. Like, I think that's pretty stinking awesome that God works that way. So if David is the picture of Jesus and Jesus is already taking down the giant, we get to live in freedom. We get to live in freedom now, knowing that the giants are already taken care of. So again, hear my heart. When it comes to prayer and when it comes to just the spiritual warfare that we get to be involved in, like, there's always going to be time for us to pray about situations and pray about needs. That's where spiritual war gets waged. But we also have to know, guys, there's a time when we just need to take action and step out. There's a time when a need has to be met, and when we've just got to be willing to step into the battlefield and take it and do what needs to be done. Because of David's willingness to do what needed to be done on behalf of others, on behalf of his nation, not on behalf of himself, not to make himself look good, but because there was a need that needed to be done on behalf of others. And David stepped into that space. God met him, God was with him, and God gave him the victory through it. And I think that's something that we need to learn. Like, as we go throughout our day and our weekend, I think what we need to ask God for is, help me to see the situations and the opportunities that I need to step into. Help me to see where I just need to step into battle and just be ready to roll. Not in my own strength, but because we're taking time to connect to him and stay connected to him so that when we face it, we're ready for it. So let's pray together. Father, thank you so much today. Thank you for this week. Thank you for the opportunity to just dig into your word for a little bit and be encouraged by the story of David and Goliath. And God, I pray exactly what we just talked about. I pray that you would give us eyes to see the situations, the opportunities, the needs that are in front of us all day long, the needs that we come across, the needs that we just walk into. Help us to see those as opportunities to step in and make a difference, to help someone, to fight on behalf of a people group or a family or a nation or whatever it is. God, help us to see the opportunities and the spaces where we can step in and make a difference. Help us to see that and not just see it. Help us to take action. Help us to take action. Help us to move forward. Help us to step in. Help us to do what needs to be done, not resting in our own strength or confidence, but allowing you to work through us to bring freedom and victory to others. God, we trust you. We love you. We give our lives to you today. We give this day to you. Help us to wage war not the way the world does. Help us to not go looking for a fight or looking for battles on social media or looking for arguments to get into. Help us to just walk confidently and faithfully in who you are, who you've called us to be, and the work that you're doing in our lives, and know that when we get to the moment that needs us, we will be ready, because of what you have already trained in us and poured into us. God, you will give us everything that we need to face everything that to conquer everything that you're calling us to do today and this weekend and this week in our lives. So God, we give it all to you. We surrender to you, and we ask you to lead us by your grace and by your spirit in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys. Woo! Cool stuff. Another stretch. Apparently, I like stretching online. All right, well, that's it for this week. So I'll see you guys Monday morning. Have a great weekend. Enjoy whatever the weather is or whatever it does. And just just keep your eyes open today for opportunities, for things, needs that you can step into, and allow God to work through you to just minister. Sometimes it's not necessarily you need to fight a battle. Sometimes people just need you to step into the pit with them so they know they're not alone, so that they know that someone else is on their side and someone's praying for them and someone's got their back. That's right, Mom. I will see you later today. All right, guys. I love you. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend.